from twitch.tv, it's Vtuber Talk. This week, our guest is Lucius Hawke. It's all about to begin on Vtuber Talk. Hello and welcome to Vtuber Talk. Hopefully my audio levels are better this week than they were last week. If they're not, please let me know in chat. I don't want to destroy anyone's ears tonight. My name's Jay, and I'm your host, and once again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. For those of you who haven't been here before, Vtuber Talk is designed after classic late-night talk shows. Everything here is live, and the goal is simply to have fun conversations that will entertain people who are already familiar with the guest, as well as being accessible to new fans. That's my fancy way of saying that anyone can tune in and have a good time. Also, while this show is run as a project of passion, donations are certainly welcome and are always split 50-50 with the guest, and my half always goes back into the show. I'm looking into a new mic perhaps because while the one I have right now is okay, sound could probably be better. Well, nobody has told me that I'm terribly loud this week, so hopefully that means it's alright. Well, either way I'm going to find out after the show. Anyways, I've been thinking lately about the VTuber scene, particularly the independent VTuber scene. It's really sort of a renaissance, when you think about it, to content creation as a whole. YouTubing's been around for, well, as long as YouTube's been around, but VTubing in particular has really become, in a lot of ways, the new YouTuber. That the idea of the synthesis of character creation and lore writing and being able to have something of a character and a mask layered on top of normal content creation and entertainment is, in my opinion, just one of the most incredible synthesizations of entertainment in goodness knows how long, but also in some ways a bit inevitable. That people have always loved making characters. We all know the jokes of, my internet OC. And this has finally really allowed a lot of people not only a way to bring characters that they like to life, but also in some ways it allows people who might be a bit more camera shy to put themselves out there in a way that's more comfortable and private for them. And I think it's just really fascinating in a lot of ways how that's been able to come together. And perhaps ironically, how also this edition of what we as viewers and consumers of VTuber content fully understand is, a fantasy character. We in the community, I feel, have actually done a very good job of acknowledging the people behind the models, and in some ways doing better, frankly, than historically non-VTuber communities have. That there's always, those stories that you hear of YouTubers or streamers who have to deal with some negative or just outright toxic fan bases because people for some reason aren't able to really get it through their heads that the person on the other side of the screen is a real person. And yet, in spite of the fact that we as VTuber fans watch VTubers who are very clearly not real people, we have this innate understanding of the person behind the model in a way that is, I sort of wonder if it is because we have the awareness that the person that we are watching in the model is not a person in real life, that it forces us to acknowledge the person behind the model even more. And you see this very frequently of just, if Gargura or anyone else really, it doesn't matter if they're, Hololive or just an independent VTuber, posts on Twitter saying, hey everyone, I'm not feeling well today, I'm not going to be able to stream, that instantly you see an outpouring of love for them. You see, oh, take care of yourself, we'll be right here waiting for you, feel better, lots of hearts and memes and just, happy gifts. And I think that's just a fantastic and fascinating in its own right of how we've been able to have this in our community, and I think it's fantastic as a whole. Anyways, that's enough of me rambling. Long story short, VTubers are great, the VTuber community is great, keep being just awesome, everybody, and keep treating everyone else with respect. That's why I wanted to start this show, because I want to help more people get to know the community and the VTubers in it. So, with that, please welcome my guest for this evening, the vampire VTuber, Mr. Lucius Hawke.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Hey there, Lucius. As we wait for your BGM to go in, once again, out there in the audience, if the sound levels are not as they should be, please do let me know. But, Lucius, your BGM is definitely the most ominous I've played on here yet. Can you tell me a bit about it, actually?
Yeah, so I wanted to incorporate the feel of home with my manner. For the most part, I have always kind of favored that harpsichord, that ominous kind of feel. But then I wanted to add a little bit of modern twist to it. So when I got it commissioned, I was like, this is what I want. You know, and I was really honest with the guy. And I showed him a reference of something from World of Warcraft, like Karazhan, where they have that harpsichord. And he's like, I can work with that. And he just started sending me these EPs and all these like segments of it, and I was like, oh yeah, let's ride. let's do this.
Yeah, no, I actually did not play World of Warcraft, but I listened to the soundtracks a lot and had the opportunity to actually meet some of the composers over the years. I can't say that I'm friends with any of them, certainly, but I've had the opportunity to cross paths with Russell Brower, Neil Acree, and the like, and they're all wonderful people, and their music is equally wonderful. So it's sort of cool to know that yours is really inspired by that.
Yeah, it's great. When I first got it, I couldn't stop listening to my own background music, to be quite honest. So I put it on repeat and would listen to it for like 15, 20 minutes at a time.
Hey, that's how you know you've got something good. And I suppose we've sort of just jumped right into it, but I'm sure a number of people in the audience tonight or listening to this after the fact are familiar with you, but for those who aren't, let us know a bit about you, please. It can be your basic lore, because I'm sure we'll get into your deep lore later, the type of content you're best known for, anything you think is important when getting to first meet Lucius Hawke.
Yeah, so I'm a vampire. First and foremost, I was changed in about 1825 to 1827. Been a vampire for a little over 200 years.
Now, I suppose there have been many representations of vampires over the years, particularly in the past several decades of modern history. Now, where in the spectrum of vampire representations do you fall? I get the feeling you're not the type that sparkles in the sunlight, but
no,
do you follow the, for lack of a better term, stereotype of an aversion to garlic, or is that just something that at this point is baseless?
Garlic is pretty baseless. There is some herbs that tingle a little bit more than others, but over generations it's kind of changed a little bit. And modern works of vampires always depict them a little bit different. I'm more, if I had to pick of which mythos I follow under, it's the D&D or the like Interview of a Vampire, or more of those classics. Holy Symbols hurt. I have to be invited in. I can't change into a bat, sadly. I've been practicing. I don't have my sire with me to teach me these things. And so like that modern works of like Dungeons and Dragons and kind of inspiration from a little bit of pieces of every culture.
Gotcha. Makes you wonder if any vampires may have had a hand in writing those D&D manuals, and that's why they're a bit more accurate.
Maybe. I can't disclose all the information about it, right?
Yes, of course, classified. So, who did your design? I know you're currently having your full model worked on, so was the person who did your PNG the same person that's working on your model, or do you have multiple artists behind you?
I have, so most of my PNGs are done by, ooh, I'm gonna butcher their name, Anarina. She's done all three of my PNGs that I have currently. I have this one, which is the one we're using. I have a holiday one, and then now I have
The one that's currently being used on all your social media profiles.
Yep, the one of me in a bunny suit. But my papa is Dusk. And I'm actually really good friends with Dusk. And he's working very diligently on my design and on my rigging. So,
fantastic.
should be getting that soon. But my debut is still a little ways away. We're aiming for April, I think. So, I still have a few odds and ends to pick up.
Yeah, goodness knows that the rigging of the model really is sort of that last hurdle before proper debut, but it's good to hear that you have all that in the works and that you're on your way. So
yeah, I'm very, very excited.
So what types of games, or I suppose in general content, would you say is your specialty? Do you have a particular genre that you enjoy streaming most, or are you a jack of all trades?
I kind of do a mixture of things. So I have my favorite thing to play is Monster Hunter. As of right now, which is something that I streamed a lot of. Wasn't doing super well on my channel, but that's okay. I still enjoy it, so that's why I still stream it and play it. On top of that, I do what is it? Dating sims. A lot of narrative heavy things. I'm not a voice actor in any stretch, but I like to do voices. And then we're actually going to try doing some D&D on my channel this week.
Nice.
But it's a test.
In general, you strike me as someone who's very story-driven, that just, of course, you love telling stories about your past, your own personal stories, but dating sims are, very story-driven, as is Dungeons & Dragons, which I know is a particular passion of yours, not just when it comes to the streaming experiment, but more of you're trying to experiment with it on streaming because you play it so much when you're not streaming.
Yeah. I think what helps is like any video game and any tabletop is a good story. And if you have multiple players, so like dating sims or like something like Doki Doki, where it's that like horror, where it's all encompassing of these multiple characters and how they correlate with each other. That is something that always has drawn my attention and I gravitate towards. Because not only you as a player are growing with them, you're growing parallel with them.
Yeah. I know someone who once said that when you're playing a video game, when it comes to the music becomes the soundtrack to your life because you are actively participating. You are the one who's going through these levels. When you're watching a movie or something, you're passive, so it's not the soundtrack of your life, it's the soundtrack of the protagonist's life. But in a game, it's the music of your life, and when it's the story, that while you're playing, it is the story of your life. If you are in an RPG where you have that agency and the ability to really control what happens in the narrative.
Exactly. And like with D&D, I typically end up being the dungeon master. So like
takes a particular set of skills for sure.
Yeah. Many years of experience.
Do you have a particular system that you prefer? That I suppose so. Dungeons and Dragons obviously refers to the particular brand of Dungeons and Dragons, but in some places is sort of used as the overarching concept of a tabletop RPG system. So, do you exclusively use D&D systems, and if so, do you have a particular edition that you favor?
Yeah, so I usually base everything off of 5e, which is it's the newest and most friendliest version I've ever played.
For sure, yeah. I played 3.5, I think I only did 1 and 4, and I've done 5 ever since. It just, for anyone out in the audience, if you're looking to get into Dungeons & Dragons, just use 5th edition. It is streamlined, it is much friendlier, for lack of a better term, and that goes for all levels of players because, frankly, especially when it came to skills in 3.5, everything was a bit too granular.
Yeah, and 3.5 was it was very intensive in how everything needed to correlate. Like you had feats, and then you had your skills, and then you had, stuff associated with your class, and then you had stuff about this.
Yeah, it was very dense.
Yeah, and so like as a new player trying to introduce somebody to 3.5, it was hard. But when it comes to 5, it's mostly all streamlined now, and like feats are optional, and given to you by a background that you pick. And then as a dungeon master, I do a lot of like rules. So like introduce more feats depending on how their backstory is written. If I'm like, ooh, this feat would also correlate well with you, and like in a way making the players powerful, so it's enjoyable for them, so they feel like they're taking on these harder challenges and harder monsters, and not feeling like they're slamming their head against a wall trying to figure out how to open up a door.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
When you do play D&D as a player character, do you find yourself tending towards any particular classes?
I like to hit things, and I like to hit them hard. So, typically I like to do like a barbarian or something like that. Those are my favorites. Trying to get used to playing like spellcasters and stuff, but like at the same time, you can cheese that by doing what's called a Hexblade Warlock.
Oh, yes.
Melee based.
Yeah, I've had a couple of friends do it because I'm very much the opposite, that I love spells. And if I'm not using spells, I'm usually something that is less melee intensive. In the most recent campaign that I've been doing with friends, I wound up for really the first time playing a paladin, so I was actually the tank in melee a lot and hitting things hard, and it was an unusual experience for me because I was like, oh wait, I'm actually supposed to run towards the enemy. After so many years of playing the wizard or the rogue or something, when I'm usually okay, I get away from the enemies, make sure that I'm still within range to use my attacks, but not actually go into the fray. It was strange because for the first session or two, I had to kind of remind myself of, oh wait, no, don't do what you have trained yourself to do for however many years playing this game. You actually have to charge in. So, it got used to it eventually, but it was definitely it was a learning process there.
As a player, I'm very simple-minded. Run in, hit things, kill it. That's my goal.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm trying to challenge myself with like multi-classing, and with currently right now I'm doing a Celestial Warlock and a Pack of the Tome with 1 level in Rogue. So like
for those who don't speak this jargon, can you explain that in a bit more detail?
Yeah. So Warlock is a class you can pick in D&D. It is a spellcaster. I mean, I don't know. You have to. Your power comes from a patron, and it doesn't matter if it's a fiend, a fae, or a celestial. And that pact you make gives you benefits.
Yeah, essentially,
for your class.
you're not always making a deal with the devil, but you're always making a deal,
Exactly.
as opposed to a wizard who has innate magical powers. But in this case, the type of magic that you get to use is flavored and dictated by your patron, because obviously if you are worshipping an evil god, that's going to give you some very different abilities from, say, the sun god or something.
It's like a cleric but without a deity.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
And it's like a sorcerer with some more strengths. So it's so their magic comes from somebody they make a deal with. And then I did Celestial, which makes you more of a Healy type. And the multi-classing is like, if you have a certain amount of stat numbers, you can actually dip into another class on top of another. So But then when you level, you have to pick which one you're going to level up. You can't level them both at the same time. So you have, throughout the whole campaign, if you do it right, 20 levels or so, a 50-50 split is 10 in Warlock and 10 in Rogue. But you can obviously play with that number a little bit and do like 8 Warlock, 12 Rogue, or whatever.
Yeah. I suppose, in a way, would a vampire be a warlock and their sire is their patron?
Yes and no. Yes, in the terms of how we gain our powers, but a vampire like myself can go and sire somebody else, and thus making me somebody else's master. So like initially, yes, because we spend time with our sire, we learn how to become what we are, and in a way they have a way to compel us.
So it's a warlock pyramid scheme.
You know,
I'm joking.
Being a vampire is just a giant multi-level marketing scheme.
There you go. There you go.
Let's be honest here. But no, seriously, it's like, you know, I got bitten, I got changed, and now I have these powers and these drawbacks that I have no idea why they hurt. And then now I'm on my own. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm figuring it all out.
You're VTubing. That's what you're doing.
Right. You know, and I built a manor on my own. I formed a life on my own, well, all without my sire, because my sire left me after he changed me. So.
Oh, what a jerk!
Yeah, tell me about it. So I did a lot of learning through readings and trial and error. I keep myself mostly covered.
Any particular stories of when a learning was from something going wrong, or perhaps for something going right?
Well, a little bit of both. So something going wrong would be directly after I got changed. So typically, how it happens is we get bitten, and getting bitten doesn't always necessarily need siring or feeding. But I was getting sired, so he drained me of all of my blood and then put like this venom in me, because our fangs are kind of more for ripping, but they are hollowed to extract the venom. And then it's 3 days in a coma as the venom circulates through us. And once that venom takes hold of us, we change. So I technically died in my bathroom.
Oh, that's unfortunate. That's not even a comfortable place to sleep for 3 days.
No, it wasn't. So when I woke up, the first thing I noticed when I looked at my vanity
was nothing.
Was nothing, exactly. And there's a way to go around it now, in a way, with like live streaming a video camera and mirrors, and then having it project live. But it's overly complicated and convoluted. And then I ran down my main hall to my study, and the blinds were still open from when I was turned, and the sun kind of bit my ankles a little bit, and it's prolonged exposure. So like, put my finger out, it just turns ashy. And then we can heal via time or feeding. So there was that. And then when I was first hungry, I drained all of my raw meats of their blood that I had within my kitchen. The housing staff was not happy with me, but then I ended up having to fire them.
Wait a minute. This, well, I would hope you fired this housing staff, because in 3 days they didn't come looking for you and didn't like once check your room or the bathrooms?
I wish I could say I was a nice person in my life, in my living life, but I wasn't. So, I kind of learned, in a way, becoming a vampire, I learned how to be a better person. That also being said, there's the stipulations back when I was turned of the 1800s of, witchcraft and these dark beings. And there's people who won't hunt them. My late husband, actually, was a vampire hunter. And
well, that might have made things a bit awkward.
It was. But I met him actually after I was turned, about 40 years after. So I had 40 years of knowledge, and we fought for weeks. But then one day, he came into my manor in Pennsylvania, and we fought and fought and fought, to the point where we were both exhausted, and we ended up talking, and talking turned to more, and then we fell in love and decided to form a life together.
Hey,
how...
the true enemies to lovers trope.
Yeah, and he taught me how to be still a better being with still having mortal values. Because you tend to lose them when you realize immortality is a factor.
For sure.
You know, we live life as long as until we are killed. And sometimes that could be tomorrow to thousands and thousands of years later.
Now, I won't ask you to divulge what could actually kill you. I'm not going to make you put yourself at risk like that. But are there any methods that some people think would kill you that actually don't, that you want to dispel because you just are sick and tired of people trying this thing that doesn't work?
It's a good question. Truth be told, I am still affected by a stake in my heart. But
well,
if I was to desire somebody...
To be very fair, the vast majority of beings are affected by a stake in the heart.
Right, but at least, like, if it's not deep enough, you can pull it out and go to the doctor, right? And kind of get a chance. I don't get a chance.
Gotcha.
It's instant.
Okay.
But if I was to sire somebody, it would move me up into what's like a master class of vampire. And at that point, a stake in the heart would only paralyze me.
I'm sorry. I've gotten so many darn masterclass ads on YouTube that I'm imagining, hi, I'm Lucius Hawke, and this is my masterclass, and it's all about how to be a vampire.
Yeah. So there's that. Running water, it doesn't necessarily kill us. It just makes us stop moving.
Now, in this case, does running water, is this a large body, or like, does this mean that showers don't work?
A large body, because a shower is artificial.
So natural bodies. Yeah. So like a stream. Gotcha.
Can stop me. A rainfall can stop me from moving. So like, it's just being cautious on those things.
But you can walk. You can still walk through if you have an umbrella.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It's fine as long as the water itself does not touch you.
Exactly. And so someone once offered a theory of, if you were a master or a sire, you get staked and someone puts you under running water, what would happen? Well, I would be stuck there until I'm discovered. So there's that. I have a ring of sun walking, because there is sometimes I have to handle my mortal's estate during the day. So the effects of the sun aren't as prevalent, but it still messes with my eyes. So sunglasses are a must if you're a vampire. With a ring of sun walking. Just throwing that out there. That took me
where'd you have to go for
acquire.
that? Because I'm assuming there's not just a vampire mall or like a vampire Diagon Alley.
No. Yeah, I had to find a coven of witches that were willing to craft me it.
Gotcha. So in this day and age, vampires are on speaking terms with witches.
Oh yeah, I mean, it really depends too on like that vampire, right?
Gotcha.
So I had a vampire hunter as my husband. So
very fair. Yeah. If you can make that work, then I'm sure you can make basically anything work.
Right, and like one of my best friends is a Katsune, which is a Eastern spirit. So like, it comes down to the individual, not who they are or what they are, right?
Yeah.
So I know plenty of Onis that are kind and caring and not out to destroy your soul. Which, spoiler alert, I don't have one because mine is damned.
Ha ha!
But
Loopholes.
yeah, but still, it's just like it comes down to the individual, not what they are.
Have you ever tried to create a build that is similar to yourself in Dungeons and Dragons?
Yes, and I keep messing it up every time because I think of myself as a spellcaster, and I am definitely not that because I am too embracive.
And I suppose that vampirism is more something that would be, I suppose, established in the monster manuals than in the player's handbooks.
Yes. So actually, my mortal's father and I sat down one day and figured it out. And it is still probably pretty overpowered because vampires are pretty high challenge rating. So, which is very flattering that we're so high up there. But when it comes down to it, being a playable subclass or race, you have to be willing to give up a lot of like stuff in your class. So like, I'm a celestial warlock. I have to give up celestial resistance because as a vampire, the divine hurts me.
Yeah.
So it's like a give and take. So it's a lot of communication.
Now, so hopping from one Wizards of the Coast property to the other, do you play Magic the Gathering at all?
I do not. I've always been fascinated by it, but I've never had the opportunity to sit down and learn it.
Okay, now I bring this up because this summer, Magic the Gathering is having a Dungeons and Dragons expansion, an official Dungeons and Dragons expansion.
I'm excited now.
Yeah, it's called Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. It was announced late last year. It's going to be coming out in like somewhere between May and July, if memory serves, because Magic the Gathering always has 4 what's called standard sets in a year. I won't bore you with all the details, but bottom line is there is going to be a full-on flavored Dungeons and Dragons set in Magic the Gathering this year. So if Magic the Gathering is something that you've been interested in, then now might be the time, or rather this summer might be the time.
I know D&D side, they did they have the Dungeons Master Guide to Ravnica
and Theros.
Yes, so they've introduced a lot of cross with 5e. I just hope they bring like Dragonlancer and stuff back.
Yeah, that's going to be the thing that's interesting because Magic has what are called legendary creatures, so things that are characters versus your vanilla creatures, which are just, some type of goblin. So you might have the just a normal creature, which is just a pickpocket in Waterdeep, but you might have a legendary creature that is Strahd.
Oh yeah.
So that's going to be the really interesting thing to see, of just even in a full MTG set that's 250 some cards, there's so much D&D lore and characters that there's going to have to be cuts, and I'm guessing they're going to have to really just go with, the A-listers of what is the most recognizable stuff, because they have to hit it. And it's been like, people have said for as long as Magic and D&D have been owned both by Wizards of the Coast, because Wizards purchased Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons at separate points in their history. But it's been a ask by fans for a while, so it's very exciting to see the two coming together, and I'm excited to see what type of crossover it gets in the game, but also in terms of player bases, because I do know that the Dungeon Master's guides for Ravnica and Theros have brought some people into D&D, so it's going to be interesting to see the flip side of it.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think I have to think like streams like Critical Role and the Nat 20 show and people like those calibers definitely coming out and talking, making it seems so diverse, because really D&D is about diversity.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Wizards is going to be giving it a very concerted marketing push, and that the marketing teams between the two products are going to be collaborating a lot in the coming months.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Well, glad I could give you something to be excited about. Maybe we'll have you back on sometime this summer, and like maybe we do a stream where you and I do a game using those cards or something.
Yeah, I would definitely. I would be game for that.
So
I'm always willing to do something D&D related.
Now, hopping back for a second, something that sort of just occurred to me. So, sun is hazardous to you, and you do have your Ring of Sun protection, which I'm guessing was integral to hiking for you, because you had mentioned to me before the show that you really like to go hiking. So,
yeah.
Does
hiking at night makes you very ominous. Like you're gonna bite somebody. Yeah, I do enjoy hiking a lot. It's
Now, do you enjoy hiking in the day more or in the night?
I think like right at dusk.
Okay, yeah. Plus, I suppose like that's more comfortable. Like, it's not too hot, not too cold.
Right, and like, I don't know. My mortal grew up very pagan and Wiccan, and like, when I reference my mortal, it's because I have to assume an identity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Social Security, taxes, all that fun jazz.
Yeah, it's like, hey, if you've got a giant manor that you've built, they're gonna find you and make you pay your taxes on it.
Right. So I don't want to be in trouble. But you know, being in tune, like hiking, just makes you feel more in tune. Like you walk and you hear the waters, and granted, I can't go close to it, being a vampire, but like just feeling the energies of the earth and how moving it can be. You know, sometimes the most breathtaking things I've seen aren't art or aren't literatures or people. It's what nature's provided.
Yeah. Now, do you prefer going hiking near civilization, so like when you get to a peak that you can look out and see the lights of a city, or do you prefer to go as far out of the way as possible, and when you get to the peak that you see as little as civilization as possible?
Both. I think like when you can hit a peak and you can look out and you see the small town. Ooh, the music might be louder than our voices.
Oh, is it?
Thank you, Moonsy. Cozy Moonsy pointed it out.
Alrighty, I had been told that volume was okay, but I have just bumped the BGM down a bit. Hopefully gets better now.
Yeah, thank you, Moonsy. Speaking of Onis, there's one right there that I know that's really kind. But no, like when you look out on a peak and you see a small little village and people just going about their day, you know, it's refreshing to see how nature and civilizations can coexist.
Now,
not one overpowering the other.
Now, speaking of overpowering one another, when it comes to feeding, is any blood acceptable, or is human blood the only thing that will do? And if so, what is your method, for lack of a better term?
So I do. I primarily now feed off of animal blood. It's more attainable, and there's a surplus of it. I mean, depending on who you ask, there's a surplus of people, but we won't go into that far of a topic. But today, human blood is more of a nicety, and it's harder to come by because you either have to be really good friends with a doctor or own a blood bank. Fortunately, I'm friends with the doctor, but even then, you know, why is this pack of blood missing? I don't want to risk his career. So typically I'll, because I do still enjoy the thrill of the hunt, if that makes sense. And where my manor is, there's woods, so I'll go for a jog, and if there's a deer there, I'll just chase after it.
All right, but you're able to get that thrill of a hunt still from an animal hunt. It does not need to be a human hunt.
Yeah, and after my late husband, you know, the ideology just shifted. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes sense.
In the early 1800s, there wasn't DNA testing or as intense forensics as there is now. So I used to go after criminals and people I used to put in jail because in my living life I was a judge. So I would thin out the scum of the world. But
The good old chaotic good.
yeah, kind of.
Or the very least neutral good.
Yeah, neutral good. Because like sometimes you slip up, even and you're like, oh no, I just messed up, but it happens. And you have to just move on.
I'd say we're all human, but not quite.
Yep, right. You went for very enthusiastic walks. Yes.
Hey, you're not living if you're not being enthusiastic.
Exactly. And so nowadays it's just going for a walk, and if I see something that like an animal that catches my eye, it's go time. But I typically try to have a surplus, so like I don't necessarily need to go feeding or hunting as often, because the less that people know of
the
my
easier
hunting
your
habits,
life is.
right? And then the other vampires won't come in onto my territory and try to take my food.
Are vampires particularly numerous in this day and age? Because obviously I don't expect that we as humans have a full realization of what the true vampire population is, but would you say that it is less than we'd expect, about what we'd expect, or more than we'd expect?
Maybe less. Or, because like a good vampire you won't know is one until he bites you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe even more. I know I'm being very ambiguous.
Yeah, it's still that's fair. Classified information.
I think publicly, less than you expect. But I think privately, there's way more than you might even think exist. Because there's different types too. There's some that are regional because there's different mythologies about them, and there's some that are intergalactic. So,
have you crossed paths with any intergalactic vampires?
Kind of. There's one that does a lot of dimensional shifting. That I met. Their name is Eden Everglow, and she does a lot of dimensional shifts. Very hard to keep track of, but she was a good friend.
Any other vampire VTubers that are friends?
Yeah, Dusk, who's also my papa, or will be my papa.
I didn't realize that they were a VTuber as well. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So our designs are vastly different, but the style is going to be very similar. Then we have Nini, who from her dimension is a vampire princess. And then we have I have a lot that I'm actually following. Their names escape me sometimes. Hex. Then we have Mini. No, Mini is a bat.
Would the modern equivalent of, because I know coven is usually a term that is reserved for a group of witches. Oh, thank you, Seriu Bomb, for the follow. Would you say that coven would be an applicable term for a group of vampires, or is there a better term for it?
Nope, coven is used for vampires as well.
Then would the modern equivalent of a vampire coven be a vampire Discord server?
Yes. Especially with how spread out we are. And like, we could fill a server. I'd say definitely we could fill a server. But yeah, an equivalent in modern day would be definitely a Discord server or a Zoom call or something. Something kind of like that.
Hey, vampires may be centuries old, but they can still adapt.
We have to. I mean, granted, I still kind of like my Victorian look, but pretty soon that's going to start raising suspicion.
Yeah, top coats are just so underappreciated.
It is. There is a modern approach to it, which is I'm all in favor for. I think there needs to be a renaissance in the Renaissance of Victorian, but that's just me.
Now, someone from the chat, January, a while back, so hopefully they're still here, mentioned that I should ask you about baseball. I don't know if this is a joke or if it's an actual thing.
It's a joke, because in modern works, there is a scene of vampires playing baseball at a thunderstorm.
Well, from what you've already told me, that can't possibly be accurate. Just by virtue of it being raining out, so...
It didn't start raining yet. It was on approach.
Oh.
So he's making reference to Twilight.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, I should have seen that coming. I really should have.
And he knows how much I love parallels to that. So, thank you, Jan. I appreciate you being in chat. It's a parallel that I don't really enjoy, but...
Well, do you enjoy real baseball at all, or do you follow any sports, or do you...
I like watching them. I don't follow them like some people do. Like, I watch football, and I'll watch the Olympics, but that's about it.
Do you have a preference in the Super Bowl next week?
I do not. That's not my teams.
Fair.
I will probably watch it mainly for the ads.
Yeah,
or
no, goodness knows that's what I do.
Or I'll just go to YouTube and type in 2021 Super Bowl ads.
Yeah.
And just watch the whole compilation.
Now, you said it's not your teams that are playing, implying that you do have a team. So which team is yours?
Yes. Ooh, it's going to be a hot take, I think. The Vikings.
Oh, okay.
Granted, because it's like my mortal's region, I guess is a good way to put it. And that's actually where my manor is built, is in that region.
Yeah.
And my mortal is very Nordic in terms of generations and bloodline. And I don't know, it's just, I grew up watching them, or my mortal grew up watching them, and then shared that experience with me once I made the offer of taking his identity for a while.
Yeah. That I think you and I are about the same level of football fandom. So I grew up in Maryland, so that meant that I grew up rooting for what is now the Washington football team, because thank goodness they finally changed that flippin' name. About time.
Right.
So I would watch with family, and well, they never did very well anyways. So there was that, but it was still, a family bonding thing, and I grew up enjoying that. But I did follow the Vikings a bit recently because I went to the University of Maryland, and I was there while Stephon Diggs was on the team, who to this day remains the most exciting football player I have ever seen on the field. And if you are a Vikings fan, you know Stephon Diggs, and you're probably sad he's not on your team anymore.
Yeah, but I feel like for his career, he made the right move. Because the Vikings always seems to get really good gems, but like it's the team cohesion that always falls apart.
Yeah, because them getting him in the 5th round was an absolute steal. Because anyone who went to Maryland knew that he was a first-round talent. But the University of Maryland football team was abysmal during his time. We could not keep the quarterback healthy. Like, we wound up one time with a 4th-string quarterback. It was bad, so... Like, if you look at the stat lines, he was very good, even at Maryland. It was abundantly clear that he was one of the best players to ever go to school. But because just the team itself was doing so poorly, he did not make a lot of headlines, and he sort of went under the radar. But everyone from Maryland, when we saw that he went to the Vikings, we were like, yeah, give it 2 years. And then sure enough, 2 years passed, and he had those 2 just explosive back-to-back games. And everyone from Maryland was just sort of sitting there like, yeah, told you so. And then, as they call it now, the miracle in Minneapolis.
Yeah, that being in this region when that happened, you couldn't walk anywhere. Everybody was talking about it, and it was like, for me, who doesn't follow all the sports, it's like, why is it called the miracle? We just won a football game, But then they're like, oh, all this happened. I was like, oh.
But for those of you who aren't entirely aware of what we're referring to, it was a playoff game. I believe it was 2 years ago now, and it was as time was expiring that the quarterback just threw this Hail Mary pass, and Stephon Diggs made this just incredible leaping one-handed catch to get the ball in the end zone as time expired, and just the entire stadium and really the whole Minnesota region just went wild. Definitely look that up on YouTube if you have a chance. It's a short enough play, but it's a really good one.
Yeah, it's so good. And a lot of it comes down to like, there's also like at that time, that week, the Wild made it and the Twins made it.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh wow, that was just a good week then.
Yeah, so like it became the miracle because everything just was just all of it. So it was really cool. I mean, granted, it was something like, again, like if you don't follow all the sports, you'd miss it. But
it's neat.
It was nice to be a part of it.
And that's one of the cool things about sports, of just how it brings people together like that, and just how there are those sort of moments of shared consciousness and that type of excitement. And while it certainly hurt for, I think it was the Saints that they beat in that game. I can't remember. It always feels really bad to be on the other side of that history, but that's how it goes in sports.
Right. I mean, you know, there's the winners and the losers, and especially when it comes to sports. So we definitely were the winners that day.
Yeah. Hopping back for a minute, you told me earlier that the music your BGM is based on World of Warcraft. You had also told me when we chatted before today that you're a big fan of World of Warcraft and Blizzard games as a whole.
Yeah.
What was your first Blizzard game?
I think technically, I think it was like a Wizards of the Coast, but Blizzard helped produce it. I think it was like Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance.
Okay, so that's going pretty far back.
Was like my first exposure, and then after that it was World of Warcraft.
Now, when did you join? Did you join at, original vanilla, or did you join at a particular expansion?
Yeah, late Burning Crusade, early Wrath of the Lich King.
Okay, yeah. That really was sort of peak World of Warcraft. That I remember in particular the releases of like Wrath was just huge.
So good. It was one of the better expansions out there, but like any big organization, they made some mistakes and now they're kind of iffy. I'm sometimes iffy on consistent play with them, but for the most part, it's been a big focus. Just playing like World of Warcraft when I have some downtime, or I always seem to go back to it. Like if I'm bored on video games or something, I just will log back in and pick up my sub and keep going.
What would you... I'm assuming that you've had many characters over the years, as one does with World of Warcraft, but what would you say for your main character? What type of build do you play?
Tank, primarily, and I was a warrior.
Okay, so still very much in the go in and hit things vein, that doesn't matter if it's tabletop or if it's a video game, that you like the damage dealers.
Oh yeah, I like hitting hard and getting hit hard. So...
and I assume that just from all this, that I'd be shocked if you weren't part of the Horde.
Ooh, I'm actually Alliance.
Gasp.
I do both, but I usually hit Alliance side.
Wow. Okay. Well, actually, maybe that's my own personal bias of the stereotypes of vampires being evil, and that I need to, be more open-minded about that.
I am true neutral, so I do both sides. The Alliance just has like a well-written story, like the Kaldorais, and their lore is very intricate, and kind of how their story building is more intricate than the Horde, where it's like, oh, we're just a bunch of these races that got declined by the Alliance to be a part of, and now we're just a ragtag group of folks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, speaking of World of Warcraft lore, what did you think of the 2014 film, or whenever it was? I think it was 14, might have been 15.
I think for people who never played the Warcraft games or looked into the lore, it did justice to what they were trying to do. There are still there are still pieces missing. Like, why did the Dark Portal open? We saw like the physical how, but there's a bigger picture to it. And so.
But you wouldn't say that. Your reaction tells me that it's at worst middle of the road. It's not a Last Airbender scenario for that fandom.
No, I don't think so at all. I think they picked the wrong lore to focus on. We'll put it that way.
I have heard that from other people,
because like the Warcraft games are so intensive, and there's a better lore out there, like Arthas and the Lich King.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised that they weren't going with more recent lore, especially just figuring, all right, people are probably more familiar with, whatever the most recent expansions of World of Warcraft are. I personally have not actually played any Warcraft games. I only ever played the World of Warcraft trial, and I never really was an MMO guy at all, so it just, not to my taste. But that meant that I went in really with no context, but it certainly, when the movie came out, I wanted to see it, and for me, it was just a fun summer popcorn flick. Nothing that I would say, should go on a pedestal as an all-timer, but I left the movie saying, like, oh, that was a great time. I don't regret seeing this at all, and I'd maybe see it a second time. Probably wouldn't buy it on DVD.
Right, and I wouldn't either. I mean, it's on Netflix and stuff, and I have watched it again after the initial watch. It's not like it said, it's not like a bad movie. Like, cinematography-wise, CGI-wise, and storytelling-wise, it's not bad. It's just, I have that bias of knowing more.
That just, I suppose underwhelming might be the word. That you hope for a little bit more, and there's a twinge of disappointment, but you look at it and you say, it could have been worse.
Yeah, like, yes, Corona was forced to kill the king, but that's not how the king died. Like, stuff like that. Like, it's like, no, that's not it. Like, you're missing the mark. There's, emotional-wise, she was forced to kill him while he was basically his weakest. But now you changed the story and forced her hand to kill him because they were surrounded? Like, no, that's not it. The emotional effect wasn't there. Gotcha. As it is if you played the games or whatever.
Yeah, and I kind of hoped that they would do a sequel, because the film was very successful. Up until that point, it was the highest grossing video game film of all time, made over $400 million, particularly successful in China. But it even if it did make most of its box office overseas, it didn't tank here in the States. So I was actually expecting them to continue on with what looked like to be the building blocks of a franchise, and I was rather surprised they didn't.
Well, they are, from what I've heard.
Ooh, I might just be out of that loop. Okay.
Yeah, so they are working on one.
Cool. Yeah. Well, hopefully
it's
we'll
rumored.
be able to, and hopefully we'll be able to go to theaters again sometime.
Yeah, it's rumored right now because COVID time and making sure everybody's safe.
Yep, as you do.
But it is something that's been mentioned, and a certain Witcher or actor who played the Witcher is fishing for a part.
Well, I think that if he were to want it, and if the film were to happen, that he would be in a rather good position to get cast.
Yeah, because the Witcher series was amazing, and I want to play the franchise more, because I watched the Netflix series like 3 times. So I have to worry if I ever meet somebody like The Witcher.
Oh yeah, hadn't even thought about
It
it
was
that
my
way.
warning.
Does that make The
But
Witcher a horror series for you?
kind of. But at the same time, uh, he does have a bleeding heart.
Hmm.
If you think about like stories told in his books and clips from games.
Yeah. Now, admittedly,
'Cause he
I still
he
haven't
sees
seen The
people.
Witcher series. I do know I need
Ooh,
to. Like that's
do
one of the
it.
that's
I
one of
don't
the
want.
few like sort of nerdy big standard series of the past several years that I
Mhm.
just haven't gotten around to. So thank you for reminding me actually, because I'm caught up on most of the other things I've been watching. So maybe I get into that over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I watched it all in a week, so you will not be disappointed.
Yeah. So hopping back to VTubing for a little bit.
Yeah.
Were there any VTubers that you felt were particularly impactful or inspirational for you before you got your start? And like, who was the first VTuber that you saw?
The first actual like VTuber I saw was Corne, but that was because of like YouTube recommendations.
That's how it always begins.
Yeah, and
And then the algorithm takes over.
yep, and then so then it got exposed to Hollow Live as a whole. And then, but that wasn't really what drove me to do VTubing, to be honest. Uh, it was actually my mortal's friend, Plant. I know her as Plant. I can never pronounce her first half of her Twitter. Um, it's like Kuruba Plant. She's actually streaming right now, but she helped inspire it because like she's an indie VTuber as well, and seeing how much fun she was having and like the anonymity of it was very appealing. And so then it was her and then Piper, who's also someone very close to my mortal. Those two being like in the community and how much fun they were having with inside of it. I was like, I want a piece of that. I want to dip my toes in this and see what happens, because I've always wanted to stream. Because I'm like, if I hit that go live button and stream maybe an hour and a half of my gameplay, and if people come and watch me, great. If not, I'm still playing something I enjoy.
Yeah.
So those two, it's always I will always credit them, because they are the closest people I have within the community, no matter what.
Gotcha. So, on vampire topics again, you obviously you need to drink blood, but do you
Yes.
still eat food?
I do. Yep.
What would you say is your favorite meal? Now, like, it can be a
Ooh.
delicacy that if you're gonna treat yourself or just you want whatever meal just makes you happy, and it could be something super simple. It could be a burger from
Ice
your
cream.
favorite ice cream.
Ice cream. I am weak for ice cream.
Oh, okay.
Ice cream, and probably not the name I should be using for it now, but we call it trailer trash food. It's where you take it's mac and cheese with like hamburger or bacon in it. Just like those, like if I'm feeling down or whatever, those are the things I crave: is ice cream and mac and cheese with some sort of meat in it.
What is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Cookies and cream.
Good standard, very good standard. I am a mint chocolate
safe.
chip guy myself.
It's safe, and like ice cream, you can dress up, but cookies and cream is always a good safe bet.
Yeah. Tea, coffee, or both, or neither?
Both. Coffee for the morning rush, and then tea as a filler.
How do you take them?
Black, and typically Earl Grey, black tea, or green tea.
And
Cream and sugar for the coffee, and then sugar or honey for the tea.
Nice. I'm not much of a coffee drinker. I do enjoy tea, and mine is just a single sugar.
I don't know. I wasn't a coffee drinker for a while, And then one day I was just so tired, and coffee was the only thing that was available.
Yeah.
And I just forced myself to like it.
It's like I
Now
love the
can't get
smell of
enough.
coffee. I love like walking
Mhm.
into a coffee shop and just smelling the aroma. But just I am a total wimp when it comes to bitter flavors.
I always hear that as a very common thing for people who aren't avid coffee drinkers. But it is definitely still like
Like
I'd
the,
like
the only
it's just
coffee
like
type thing that I've
yeah.
ever really liked, well, there's two, and one of them's coffee ice cream, and the other
Yep, that's
is
good.
like the frappuccino type things, but those are just so full of sugar and cream that it is somewhat difficult to call it coffee at that point.
Like a watered down coffee. Yeah, I call it expensive coffee, like from Starbucks or whatever. You start adding so much cream and sugar. But
Yeah.
I don't know, like if I'm really like needing that kick, I do black because that bitterness also wakes me up a bit.
Fair.
But if I'm like wanting flavor, I'll add cream, sugar, or whatever else.
Mm.
Or Bailey's Irish cream, depending on the mood.
Well, so I suppose in that case, do you have a favorite alcoholic drink?
Uh, Actually, mostly, I don't drink often anymore. Um, Before I had drinks, I think this last Friday, I was at 2 year sobriety. So, but typically I gravitate towards whiskey or scotch when I really need it. Quote unquote, when I'm really wanting to have a drink.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with
'Cause I don't need it.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with something small and celebratory every now and again.
Exactly. I'm trying to go back to more of that social aspect of what it was. Not so much that I'm not feeling good aspect.
For
You know
sure.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So,
Admittedly, there aren't as many social opportunities right now, but
right. I mean, like if I'm sitting in Discord with a bunch of friends,
yeah.
I'll crack open like a cider or something if I have it. And enjoy their presence.
Yeah.
While feeling a little buzzed.
Yeah. What is something that people don't know about you? So it can be something, like I said, very small. Do you have a fun fact that for anyone here who has been to all your streams, that they can walk away after tonight and be like, I learned something new about Lucius?
A half elf, not human.
Oh. Half elf, you said?
Yes.
Wow, and here I was like, I don't need it to be a big thing, but like that feels like a revelation.
Yep. A lot of people assume most vampires are humans.
Holy cow, it's like, now I have an entire other interview's worth of questions of like the elf side of your heritage, because obviously there's plenty of things that the viewers and I, under the base assumption that the vast majority of our viewers are normal humans as myself, that I don't need to ask certain types of questions because they're known to us. But now there's all these other things of just, okay, the half-elves. And, all right, if there's half-elves, that means that there's full elves out there. And, oh, dear, I feel like you literally just doubled the depth of your lore.
Yeah. My mother was a high elf. My father was human.
Wow. Oh, gosh. Like I said, yeah, no, I'm going to have you back sometime down the line, and then we'll talk more elf stuff, because, oh, man.
Yeah.
And like,
I did a small little reveal not too long ago. But there's some stuff I'm still saving up for my debut, and that was a segue to a little bit of it.
Oh boy. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And like I said, I told you it didn't have to be something earth-shattering to your lore, but you just treated me. That was wonderful.
Me, it's not really that earth-shattering because it's just my race, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's earth-shattering for us because we don't know about elves. That it's more. It's less. It's less the fact of that you are half something, and more the fact of, well, wait a minute, we've just been told that this other thing in mythology is confirmed, and now there's all those questions therein.
Yeah. So I've met some full elves out there. interacted with them. They're pretty nice.
And again, I suppose I
With
have
my mom
seen the
sometimes.
occasional elf VTuber.
They're few and in between.
What would you say
They're
your
almost more rare than vampires.
what would you say your goals for 2021 are? Obviously debuting, but do you have
Debuting.
anything of just like once you debut that you want to do a particular type of project or collaboration?
Short goal term debut, because that's going to be in April, so that's almost half the year, right?
Yeah.
After that, it's road to partner.
Yeah. Good
So
goal to have.
it's-
Easy. Well, sorry, won't say easy metrics. Clear metrics.
Yeah. So it's I'm actually going to school for business and marketing.
That's
to
actually what I
help,
went for.
In a weird way, to help me figure out good ways to work on branding.
Yeah, makes sense.
So yeah, my after debut, it's road to partner.
Nice. And I guess from a high level perspective, what does being a VTuber mean to you? And I don't mean that in the sense of like the definition of what is a VTuber to you, but to you, Lucius, what does it mean to be a VTuber?
Sharing a passion. I like to say I'm a variety streamer, and I like being in my community. What's kind of hard right now is that my time is so limited because of being in school and working full time on top of doing VTubing. But I've been trying to make more of an effort to be with the people who follow me and hang out and adapt with them, and like I said, like the reason I really kind of started streaming was if things work out, great, but for the most part I'm doing something I do as a hobby every day.
Yeah.
I play video games.
Mm-hmm.
And really, to me, boiling down, the big differences is hitting that go live button or not. I did a recent interview on the big overarching idea of what a VTuber was because of what Calliope Mori said.
Yeah, you were on Toki Talk.
Yeah, and there, I was like, the difference between, or like, to really like encompass it all together, even here, the difference between playing video games and being a content creator is literally just hitting that go live button and just producing stuff. I can only play video games. I'm not a voice actor. I'm not an artist. I'm not a singer, or I don't have these multi facets of talents. But what I do have is the joy of being with my community.
Yeah, and that's just integral for content creation as a whole. It doesn't matter if you're a VTuber,
Right.
YouTuber, or just anything that you don't get into this line of work, quote unquote, without actually having the genuine passion and joy behind it. Otherwise, you're not going to last long.
Right. And like, my dream has always been to own a business. And if I can make myself that business, awesome. Because then, I thought of this stupid YouTube video I saw. So sorry for the random laughing. If you guys want a fun watch, just look up Being My Own Boss by Brian something. It's funny. It's satire, but it's funny. But it's just like, the ideology of like, I can be a self-managed brand. It's enticing to me. And I want to hit it. I want to hit it hard.
It makes sense. So when it comes to the next big thing for Lucius Hawke, what is next? Do you have any projects or collabs that you have that you want to spotlight and make sure that people tune in for?
Yeah, so this Wednesday we're doing a test streams on multiple channels on how D&D will be well received with some people within the community, Plant, Piper, and some of our real life friends. And if it goes well, and we think that we want to take it streaming wise, we're going to make a shared Twitch account and make a real channel out of it, all of us together.
And are you going to be DMing that one?
I will be, yes. So
can you give us any preview of what the scenario is?
Pirates.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. So we're doing a Pirates. Life is good for me.
Very nice. I would tune in, but Wednesday night is when I have my D&D session with my friends.
Yeah, and Wednesday is, I think, out of all of our schedules, is the only day we don't stream like our own content. So we were like, hey, and it's just us hanging out. So you'll see us more in a more relaxed manner.
Mm-hmm.
Not so, I don't want to say uppity. Not so like on the spotlight. If that makes sense.
Yeah, looser.
Looser, yeah. I don't know. I'm currently. I don't know if she's released any information about it. There is a collab at the end of the month with a bunch of other non-human VTubers, so Onis, demons, a vampire, and a spirit. And we are going to get reformed by Sister Abigail.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. That's adorable.
So we are. That's, I think, in the works right now. And more information to come definitely within the month about it. We're kind of letting Sister Abigail lead it in terms of what's being announced about it, because
Gotcha. Well, we got a bit of an exclusive here.
Yeah, so I think that would be good. I don't think it was hush hush. It was never stated it was hush hush. And if it was, I just broke the rules.
Don't worry, I won't tell anyone if you don't.
Right.
And speaking of which, for Abigail's, I do know her that is Prayers from Abby, ABI, on Twitter.
Yep, ABI. So I've been to one of her streams before, and she's an absolute sweetheart. So definitely, if you get the chance, check her out.
Yeah, that sounds like it's going to be fun, of just sort of a meeting of the monsters, for lack of a better term, and I can only imagine that just come October that what you all are going to put together.
Ooh, yeah, I
know that's a long ways off, but it's the type of thing of just that's going to be something that I'm sure that the community as a whole is really going to anticipate, because I feel like we just, obviously the growth of the VTuber community, and especially the indie scene, has been so explosive in the past several months that it had already been a thing before HoloLive English, but I don't think it is absurd to say that HoloLive English really has catalyzed it in a way that it was not before. And since they came out in mid-September, there really wasn't quite the exponential growth in October of 2020, but, given a year's time, once we get to October this year, we're going to have, just who knows how many more people, and I'm very excited to see what people do with it, because it just, starting, I'm sure October 1st, it's going to be spooky and pumpkins everywhere.
I think we have COVID to also credit for the growth, because people have a lot of free time.
For sure.
The reason for free time depends on employment situations, but people want to feel social, and this is the best social outlet that there is. Streaming and everything. Yeah,
there's never a good time for something like this to happen, but there's never been a better time for it either.
Exactly. You gotta, as my late husband always taught me, is always find the greener side.
Indeed. Well, Lucius, thank you so much for joining me tonight. This has just been a blast. This has been great. I love being able to nerd out with you about Dungeons & Dragons. I hope you'll check out the Magic the Gathering set later on.
I will. No, it was a great time. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope I can come back around later on.
Definitely. I hope to have many, many different guests on before I start doing repeats, but I anticipate that repeats will inevitably happen, and you'll be on that list once I start doing that. So do look forward to it. Thank you once again for being here, and thank you to everyone in the chat as well. I hope you all continue to support the show. This is only episode 3 of Vtuber Talk. There's a lot more amazing people to talk with, and I hope you'll continue to join me for it. Until then, have a great night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.